So joining us now for more on that note is this evening's political panel, Maura Gillespie, founder and principal at Blue Stack Strategies and Republican strategist, alongside Kevin Walling, vice president at HG Creative and Democratic strategist. Welcome to you both. It's great to see you here. Maura, if I could come to you first as the Republican on this panel. Republicans don't seem that they are entirely aligned on how they want to pursue immigration, energy, and tax reform. And it doesn't seem like Donald Trump is of a firm mind on this either. How quickly can he actually come to a decision? Do you think it could happen tonight?
I think that it's really important they have these conversations in private. I wish they had done this previous to making any announcements about a great one big bill or two bills. You know, that's a conversation that needs to be had internally. I think it adds to the confusion and then this idea that Republicans can't get it together and they are chaotic when they have these public disagreements. And so it's really important they're having in-house conversations right now about what the path forward looks like and how to get the votes they need in such slim majorities that they have here in Congress moving, looking ahead. They need to get a bill done. And I do believe that this first year for President Trump coming in is the most crucial. And so how can he get a win on the table, put a win on the board soon? This is where that really is the focus for both president and for Congress.
We spoke earlier today with Patrick McHenry, former Republican congressman, used to chair the House Financial Services Committee. He's seen this movie before. He says if Donald Trump wants one bill and tells them, they'll get it done. Have it in two bills, they'll get it done. But if he doesn't tell them anything, nothing will get done. They need direction is the idea here, Kevin. Will they get it tonight?
Well, potentially we'll see that play out tonight with the president right now with breaking news that he's on Capitol Hill. I think to Mara's point, you do have that divide. Obviously, Mike Johnson, Patrick McHenry's former colleague, wants one bill, and the Senate is looking at more likely two bills to break out the border, energy, and taxes. But it is a question of what can pass. I think there's universal agreement from what I've seen on the Republican side that the House needs to move first, and the Senate will react to that through the reconciliation process. But to Mara's point, a lot of this has to happen behind closed doors. I think you see a more engaged, more serious Republican caucus. You saw it right after they were sworn in. They went to Fort McNair here in D.C. for that retreat to talk through this process because timing is of the essence, because then we're going into March with government funding deadlines, the debt ceiling deadlines. There really is a short time frame for them to move either this first bill or two bills.
Donald Trump is just speaking to reporters on Capitol Hill right now, saying we're looking at one bill versus two bills. Whatever we do, it's going to be great. We'll get it done. So I'm not sure we're provided any more clarity with those statements. We'll see if this changes throughout the course of the evening. My question is, Kevin, we've been framing this as basically something entirely for Republicans to figure out, and that only Republican votes will be advancing this legislative agenda. But we saw more Democrats yesterday voting for an immigration-related measure in the House, the Laken-Riley Act. There's tax reform measures and a SALT cap potentially being lifted. That could be good for blue states like New York and California. Should we entirely count Democrats out of this equation?
It's a really great question, and you saw those 9 Democrats sign on to the cloture vote. I think they're gonna bring that up for conversation. It was on Friday. Now it's moved to Thursday, and you saw Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats in the House, signaling in his introduction of Mike Johnson when he passed the gavel to him a willingness, as long as Democrats are at the table, to be involved in that process. Mike Johnson's majority is about to get a lot smaller by 2 seats come January 20th, and this new administration taking over. So I think it's in their interest to bring Democrats to the table to get something done, similar to what we've seen with government funding fights in the past.
Just want to mention quickly what we're looking at here, a live view of the U.S. Rotunda in the U.S. Capitol, I should say. President-elect Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have arrived at Jimmy Carter's casket in the middle of the reviewing here. This is a moment that we didn't necessarily know was going to happen in advance of his meeting with Senate Republicans. As we look at that live view, the catafalque, the platform that is holding the casket right now, the same one that was used for Abraham Lincoln. There is great history and tradition at play, which is something that we wanted to take a moment to bring you here on Bloomberg. As we spend time with our panel, Kevin and Maura Gillespie, he's going to go from here into this meeting. He already, by the way, spoke to the Speaker of the House. You worked for a former Speaker, John Boehner, and there is always a concern about being jammed by the Senate. Who goes first?
It's going to be a matter of who has the plan, like you just talked about, who's got a path forward. Because I think when you're breaking it down by issues, yes, a lot of these members, there are ways to work together. several of the members that you mentioned, the Democratic Party, their districts were won by President Trump. So they're going to look for ways to find common ground. They're going to want to support a package that helps their constituents as well, because I think a lot of times we find ourselves, it's easy to silo, and a lot of the conversation has been all Republicans need to get on board with whatever plan it is. Yes, but there should also be an openness, as Kevin pointed out, to engage with members across the aisle and to find ways to bring them over, because I think if you do end up doing one big bill, you may lose some of those Republicans. And so you're going to want to find things that can entice Democrats across the aisle to come on board and to vote for that package. So, whichever side comes with the plan first, that's what you're going to see going forward.
Well, we also have questions about whether Democratic votes are going to be there for some of these nominees for the second Trump administration that are beginning their confirmation hearings next week. We've got Marco Rubio on the deck. Pete Hegseth is going to be beginning his hearings on Tuesday. Maura, all of this just days ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. Is this going to go smoothly, or is this going to be the first taste of potentially a nominee who can't actually make it through the U.S. Senate?
I think Marco Rubio's smooth sailing. There are a couple that have not raised any flags, and you've heard Democratic senators who said, yep, they've got my support. We'll still go through the process of the hearing, but I don't see any issues coming, ahead of it. That's for, a nice majority of them, but there are a handful that have not had successful meetings on the Hill. Their Senate meetings have not gone well. I'll say that a couple that I've heard of are Tulsi Gabbard. Kash Patel is a concern for many. And yes, Pete Hegseth and his stance on women in combat is a problem for not only Democratic senators, but Republican senators as well. So I think that it won't be a sure thing to get them all through, and even with the threats of primaries, some of these senators, they're not up for re-election until 28, which is the end of the Trump term. So it's going to be tough for a few of these nominees, but by and large, you'll see them get through.
Beating a dead horse with this notion that people were not yet feeling it. Will history reflect more kindly upon him, Maura, than the American electorate did over the last few years?
History tends to. I mean, we look fondly back on several of our world leaders and our American leaders more fondly after they've left office and realizing, how good it was before, and we didn't see it in the moment. So I'm sure there will be aspects of the Biden administration that we currently don't see as being fantastic for us that maybe will be, in years to come. I think that there is a issue, though, with how much time he'll have truly to see that kind of unfold. And we have presidents now that are, with Jimmy Carter's passing, and then you have Biden and then Trump, they're not going to have that much time in their post-presidency life to make a legacy for themselves. So really it does come down to what happened during their presidential years. And that's going to end up being their legacy, because there won't be as much time, hypothetically, to really make a mark in their post-presidency years.
That's a great point.